Hello buddy, it's Wyvern here with another Total War Warhammer 2 Community Cast. Now this time around it is a game that was submitted to me by David, and we'll be featuring some undead on undead action because the Vampire Coast is going to be taking on the Counts on the map Alpine Ridge. And strangely enough, it is the Coast making the air dominance play, which is definitely a little surprising. Normally you do see the Vampire Counts going for that play if anybody's going for it at all, but we're not going to be seeing that here. And going over the builds here for the Coast, we do see good old Luther Harkon coming atop his Terrorgeist. Quite the piece of work, and of course he's great for sniping out enemy lords. He can be dishing out that he can dish out all the physical resist disruption, but he also dishes out a consistent amount of damage, especially if your lord's unshielded. He can just snipe them down from the air unmolested, and against Counts who don't necessarily have the best ways of pinning him down, he can kind of kite and poke away at you over an extended period of time. And of course in melee he's not terrible. Stacked on his pistol damage, he's really strong. Now here he has brought Slan Gold to disrupt enemy winds of magic regen, which can be pretty powerful, especially against Vampire Counts who may bring a Necromancer, for example, to act as a wind of magic battery. You can counteract that. We got Hornswaggle for the single target debuff. Power Siphon, once again, good debuff, drains vigor, increases ability recharge, which makes it hard to cast magic. And then Magical Void, which not the biggest fan of because it is kind of costly, but it does get you some magic resist, so it can mitigate spear leeches, that sort of thing. Besides that, we do have a bunch of flyers. We've got some bats, we've got some gun bats up in the skies, as well as second Terrorgeist, so going very heavy on the airplay here. And then, no shooting on the ground. The ground force is entirely melee. A whole bunch of zombie deckhands, we've got some zombie polearms, a vampire fleet captain here on foot, so she's not actually going to be rocking on a Promethean here. She's just got Van Hels's Dance Macabre, Summons, and Invocation of the Neck, so kind of the usual kit. Taunt. Once again, solid debuff. Stacks on top of Luther's debuff on the Hornswaggle, so it's a very powerful ability there. And then Power Stone, of course, for the wind's magic. Finally, a unit of Depth Guard anchoring things in the center. And these guys are pretty brutal. They're on one hand, there are, of course, tools that Vampire Counts have against them, but at the same time, well, most of the Vampire Counts armies you see are these very wide skeleton, maybe Graveguard heavy armies. And against those, Depth Guard can actually perform rather well. Now over here on the other end, we do have Luca or Triari playing as the Vampire Counts, and he has brought a very wide infantry heavy build. This is definitely a bit different. You do see infantry heavy builds for sure in this matchup. I actually believe it was one of the recent Everchosens where one of the undead players actually brought a very infantry heavy Vampire Count army, but no Blood Dragon in that one. In this one, we are going to be seeing a Blood Dragon, and he's coming in with, of course, the help of Discord, the usual there. Heart Piercing, great for Sundering Armor. Stiffens up the Sternsman here, makes him much better against armor, especially against like Depth Guard. Of course, Van Hels's Dance Macabre, Summons, and Invocation of the Neck, so the usual kit there. Honor or Death, which lets him tank a little bit better. Give him some extra leadership and damage resist, which, you know, it stacks with the missile resist. Could help him tank Luther, because he's going to have to here, because he's got no air plays. Some Graveguard. Besides that, Graveguard great weapons, which is a surprising pick. That's really one of the things that threw me off here. Which great against Depth Guard. They'll cleave through them very cost efficiently. I actually think they might beat Depth Guard. It's not something I've tested. But at the same time, they are very susceptible to gun bats. They are very susceptible to missile pressure, and are not going to be great at pinning Terrorgeist down. Besides that, we do have some White Kings. These guys, of course, do have their Scab's Wrath, which is their ability that they can cast. It's like a breath spell. Very powerful. Can delete cheap chaff infantry easily. Some Skelly Boys in the front, and then a small Cav contingent over here composed of Dire Wolves, as well as the Chillgeist. And Chillgeist are actually Wraith units in general are very strong against Coast, because Coast doesn't have magic damage besides its own Ghost units, or Spiteful Shot, I guess, and obviously spells, which does make it hard for them to really counteract Wraiths efficiently. That said, Chillgeist, of course, is very dependent on healing, so one of the big problems here, and we can already see it here, is the Blood Dragon is being focused very heavily. He's already losing thousands of HP to the gun bats, plus Luther, of course. And if he's not around to heal, then the Chillgeists, although they do have decent leadership for a Ghost unit, they don't start crumbling that easily. Without heals, they are going to suffer. There's no backup caster here for the Counts, so Blood Dragon is it. He is trying to get into melee here, surging forward before Luther can shut him down. We can see the engagement going down as the Graveguard dives into the Depth Guard, trying to cleave through this line of chaff there. Van Hels's Dance Macabre going in, buffing these troops up, letting them fight a little bit better. And we can see Scab's Wrath there actually cleave through this line. Dire Wolf is being used as a pseudo light cab, actually, and that's pretty cool to see. Breaking this zombie deckhand mob super quickly, and breaking this one pretty quick too. Helm Discord goes down from the Blood Dragon. He's popped Invocation in the Heck. He's got Heart Piercing going, so this unit is not going to last all that well once he's able to start landing some hits on him, because they're going to lose a bunch of armor. Unfortunately, it looks like right now the Blood Dragon's actually getting distracted by the zombies, I think. Because they're not being hit by heart piercing. Unless it's bugged. Not sure. Regardless, we do see the Terrorgeist trying to dive in, trying to get a little cheeky there. Decides to bail, which makes sense. Blood Dragon in the meantime cleaving through this line pretty quickly. And as you can see, the infantry are doing excellently. And because all that fire is focused on the Blood Dragon, it means the rest of the army here is able to do basically whatever it wants. Chillgeist kind of running roughshod over the back lines. Haven't gotten any kills yet, but should be able to get some nice rear charges against some of these troops. But Blood Dragon, as you can see, nearing his heal cap. One of the big problems with Footlords is that their base HP isn't very high. So as he's getting pounded away on, he's going to hit his heal cap quick. Even if he does hit it with indications of Neck and all that, he's going to hit his heal cap and then he's going to be a dead man. Solid Gold going in there to secure the kill even more. You can see he got shot there a whole bunch by Luther and he does go down. So quite the tragedy for the Counts. And yeah, it's going to be rough here. Now, balance of power is slightly in the Vampire Coast's favor. The problem is that right now, there isn't anything for the Counts to really pin the Terrorgeists. Chillgeists, obviously, but Chillgeists, once they start crumbling, they don't have heals, and everything else here is infantry, so that's cycle chargeable. The Direwolves now, with no leadership, are going to start crumbling, so that's not going to be reliable to pin anything. Chillgeists doing their best here. They can kind of snare the Terrorgeist. But unfortunately, I actually think that the zombies are getting in the way here. It's actually a bit of friendly blockage, making it hard for the Chillgeist to get on the top of the death streak. Does finally get in there. The Vampire Fleet Captain, in the meantime, over here running away from the White King, which is probably a smart decision. She's not really equipped to fight that with only 30 armor. The Fleet Captain really can't take that fight. But Luther Harkon there, sniping out another White King, and things are looking pretty grim for the Counts. Chillgeists over here do get a bit of a surround on the death streak, and keep in mind they do have the chilling aura, so they are able to slow it down to 57, which means it can't escape them. But another breath attack goes in. Not the best one. I think it kind of smashes some of the infantry instead of the Chillgeists. But once the Chillgeists are gone, I don't think the Vampire Counts can take this. There just isn't much to really keep them. There isn't much to really let them keep these Terrorgeists on the ground. And while this infantry mob can maybe beat down Luther if he just stayed there in a fight, as long as he's got summons, as long as he's got this continuous stream of support, there's not much to be done there. And you can see the Gunbats, they're pouring fire. I think they're all focusing on the Chillgeists. I could be wrong. It's a little hard to tell but what the orders are. But no doubt at this point, David knows that the Chillgeists are the biggest threat, and remove those, and you've basically sealed the deal. The Death Streak Terrorgeist here kind of getting blocked up a little bit by Skelly Boys, but they're not really able to do anything about him. And although the Chillgeists here are snaring down Luther a bit, they're coming under that continuous pressure. Actually, looks like the Gunbats are focused on the White King. Honestly, I'd probably leave him alone. I'd probably try to focus on the Chillgeists right now. I get that they're almost dead, and they're getting disrupted, so their Fizz resistance is down to 65%. But I think they should be public enemy number 1 for the coast here. As you can see, balance of power is still sitting at 60%, but at this point, I really don't see the comeback for the Counts here. Chillgeists, yeah, they're gonna crumble away in a little bit. They don't have enough HP. They're an excellent unit, but with no heal support, they really do struggle in this sort of drawn out slugfest. And Gunbats are almost out of ammo, which is definitely an advantage, and that is only really going to leave this blob of elite stuff. The problem is there's nothing to deal with that blob of elite stuff, really. So these guys, they'll just be able to cycle charge. They still have summons, no doubt, because the magic usage hasn't been that hefty for the coast, or for the, well, obviously not for the Counts. They lost their lord, but for the coast, I believe this Vampire Fleet Captain does have at least some wins of magic, because she's only cast a few Van Hells and some summons, so it's probably a solid, I'd imagine, 15, 20 or so wins of magic, maybe more. Graveguard do catch her, and I think Graveguard would actually womp on the Vampire Fleet Captain pretty well. They do have that bonus versus infantry somewhere in here. If we look, bonus versus infantry of 8, and they hit pretty hard, so with 30 armor, she can't hold up very well with that. Plus, keep in mind, the infantry models do get us around here, so they're going to be hitting her from all sides. Though, looks like right now the Gunbats diving in kind of bravely there, disrupting and being a pain in the rear. And the rest of the force trying to push down, but at this point, Luther still has a lot of ammo, and him and the Terrorgeist should cycle charge the rear here, with nothing to punish them, really. The infantry would really have to blob up, and I don't think they have the mass to stop this. You can see hundreds of HP getting shaved off the Graveguard. Once the Graveguard's gone, there's going to be nothing, I think. Fleet Captain getting smacked around. You can see she's getting chunked pretty hard. Graveyard do hit really well. But a zombie summon is going to be disrupting that, making it hard to get a beat on her. White King does go in, and he's going to be smacking her real hard. And once again, you can see that Invocation of the Hag, so Winds of Magic is rather high, I would assume. And she's going to heal up to heal cap at that point. And of course, Luther and the Terrorgeist probably going to dive in here, save the damsel in distress from the White King. Not much this guy can do really. As you can see, Luther is getting a bit distracted by all the skeletons, but I don't think it's really going to be enough. White King, Hornswaggled, stats down in the gutter. Not going to stick around for long. And basically a matter of time. We'll fast forward here a little bit, because I think it's going to be a little bit of a grind probably, but the infantry, unfortunately, yeah, it's not going to be able to hold. You got the Sternsmen. Sternsmen are basically unbreakable, but you can see how much damage has actually been done to the Graveyard. So even in a grind here, and honestly, I was kind of expecting cycle charging to be done, but we don't really see much cycle. We do see a Van Hels pop there, but there hasn't really been much cycle charging from the coast. It kind of stayed in there for quite a while, and the Graveyard are still falling apart. And once this Graveyard are gone, it's not going to be much to keep the counts of the fight. You can see Scab's Wrath going down there, murdering some zombies. But at this point, I think it is going to be game over as the counts are reduced to their last legs. The poor White King there just fighting tooth and nail. He's in here somewhere. Yeah, he's slicing at that. He's slicing at that Terrorgeist. White King's not a terrible combatant, but with taunt on him, he's usually not able to stick around very well. That lone gun bat just stuck in there, gets cleaved into by the Terrorgeist, but not by the Terrorgeist, by the Graveguard. But that's going to be, I believe, game. White King there getting swamped from all sides. He does finally get his hands on that evasive Vampire Lassie, but too late. And as he dies, I think it's going to be over. There we go. Crumbling kicking in. A mass disintegration of the Vampire Count army. I believe the Sternsmen the last to go there in the back. That's going to be game for the coast. Now, the game here, I think it did say Pyrrhic victory, but I think the game was a lot less close than that indicated. Two essentially full HP Terrorgeists at the end were really just absolute murder on the infantry pocket. So this does show just how disgusting Luther can be. Luther's nasty. He can melt your lord. In my opinion, this is why. And this could just be me, but in my opinion, when I play counts, I try to bring a Flying Lord in this matchup, because in the worst case, you can Benny heal away from Luther Harkon. He can't really catch you. And you've got a lot more HP to work with, especially if you're on Terrorgeist with, for example, a Strigor Ghoul King, which I know people consider Strigor Ghoul King a bit of a meme, but he gets the Critical Summon, which is actually really strong against Vampire Coast, because it melts their squishy trash. And he himself is a decent combatant, but you can also Benny heal away from Luther. So... and regen at the same time. So, in my opinion, this is kind of shows why you, I think, want to bring a Flying Lord just to be safe, or at least make some air plays to protect yourself from air attack. Because in this game, the amount of value the deck droppers and Luther got was insane. They killed the Blood Dragon, of course, which is a crippling blow to Vampire counts. That essentially means that all of your lower end units, all the Skeleton Warriors here, all the Dire Wolves, and honestly, even the Chillgeists are screwed. Only the Graveguard and the Vikings are really going to stick around. And we saw that in this game. They were the ones who stuck around through to the end, essentially. But without that, they just can't hold up. So that's a bit of a crippling blow. The snipage on the White King, one of the White Kings went down super early. And then just damage dealt to the Chillgeists and those units was very, very brutal stuff. And so that was some really strong usage of the flyers. We saw chevrons gained. We saw breath attacks that were just melting some of the pockets, especially the Chillgeists. Had a really bad time. Good use of summons to disrupt and be a nuisance, of course. Zombies didn't hold up well at all. They did net some kills. 62 kills on these guys isn't bad. But keep in mind, a lot of that was against skeletons, who are essentially their equivalent of trash. And the Graveguard just had an absolute field day, cleaving through the Depth Guard, who just didn't have a good time. Fellbats didn't have too great of a time. Obviously, with Graveguard on the field, those will win that infantry fight handily. Now, for the Vampire Count build here, my biggest critique here, obviously the Graveguard did excellent, and the Dire Wolves being used as a pseudo-light cab was actually pretty cool. They got some good value against zombies. Unfortunately, I do think that the bringing of the Blood Dragon on foot, honestly, even if you bring him on a Pegasus, he can at least Benny Hill away from Luther. So I think that And it does increase. Keep in mind, being mounted on a horse increases your heal cap as well, because you get a little more HP. You get like a couple hundred more HP when you're mounted on a Bard Nightmare or whatever. So I think that would have been a good move, just to try to get preferably up in the sky. And if you can't do that, try to at least beef yourself up a little bit. Get some, or bring a spare caster. I know that the double White King was the play here, but if you have a Necromancer in there, at least then you can heal your Chill Geist. I do think the lack of mobility did end up being a bit crippling as well, that there just wasn't anything to really snare down the Terrorgeist. Chill Geist are really good for that, and they did a good job initially, but as they got whittled down, they just weren't able to keep all these flyers pinned, and of course as they get shot to crap and there's no healing for them, they fall apart. So that would be really my main critique. I do think Chill Geist are actually a cool unit to see. Usually I see Wraiths, Karen Wraiths used in this matchup, or Banshees used in this matchup, but I do think Chill Geist can be really awesome. Actually, really solid against this sort of flyer build, because you can snare those flyers down on the ground and tear them to shreds. And a very powerful unit against Coast that I think a lot of people underestimate, because I guess because it's vampire factions and you usually expect some magic damage coming out and all that sort of thing. But yeah, Ghosts are strong against Ghosts. Ghost doesn't have too many good counters against them. They can bring like Syrenes, they can bring Claustra. I believe it's only Claustra on foot, so obviously you don't really want Claustra on foot fighting anything. And then Spiteful Shot and some magic, but otherwise you don't really have. The Regiment of Renown deck gunners, but there really isn't much to shut down Chill Geists or Wraiths in general, or certainly not quickly. So that's one of those things I think it's worth keeping in mind. If you're playing this matchup from the count perspective, Ghosts are a powerful choice. Yeah, this is just a brutal air build. Definitely had, and honestly, even if there had been an air power play here, I think this would have been a very competitive composition. Not sure you could win it. It would kind of depend, I think. There's certainly some very powerful air plays Vampire accounts can make with Vargheists and to their own Terrorgeists, of course, and that sort of thing. But this was a very powerful air comp, so cool to see that approach taken. Regardless, well played to both players here. Huge thanks to David for submitting the replay. I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.